Good morning. We are here for our regularly scheduled county commissioner meeting. We have all three commissioners present. We have the administrator, Mr. Danzel, and our clerk of the board. And at this time, I will call the meeting to order and ask everybody to please rise and join in the pledge. First item on the agenda is the adoption of the current agenda.
Mr. Chairman, move for approval of the agenda as presented.
Second.
This is a first. There's been no changes to the agenda. There's been a motion and a second for the adoption of the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Down to public comment. Anybody for public comment? Anybody in the room or anybody on the phone?
Good morning, gentlemen. I did some follow-up from the visit with Mr. Pearson to Kilotis, and I sent an email to Brian. And I really wholeheartedly support, I'm glad to see the mayor from Kilotis being here today. The review and the chance to look at how to revitalize that farming community with both water, maybe in a lake or a reservoir, as well as water rights coming back up from the Columbia to create a sewer system that will work. And I hope that Brian will be able to go over that with you in detail. But that to me is a priority. People boiling water in Franklin County to drink and carting water from Connell to flush their toilets is not acceptable as our neighbors and our friends. Thank you.
Anybody on the telephones? Seeing nobody else stepping forward, we'll move down to the approval of the consent agenda, and I believe there are 6 items on the consent agenda.
Move for approval of consent agenda items 1 through 6 as presented.
Second.
Been a motion and a second for the 6 items on the consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Takes us down to regular business. Presentation of the Japanese beetle update presented by Mr. Acosta on the Japanese beetle eradication coordination from Washington State. Welcome.
Thank you guys for having me again. So as you said, my name is Camilo Acosta. I'm the Japanese beetle eradication coordinator with the Washington State Department of Agriculture Pest Program. And you guys have seen me before, but I just wanted to come by and give another update on our efforts, how that's been going this year since the spring, since it's been a little bit since I've been in. So just to remind anyone, I do see some new faces up here. So just as a reminder, we've had 3 years now of activity here in Franklin County trying to eradicate a population of Japanese beetle. And those efforts have increased over the years since finding those original 10 beetles in 2023, capturing additional beetles in 2024, with 2024 also being the first year of residential treatments in this area, where we treated just over about a square mile worth of area, which actually equaled about 900 residents. And of course, we keep monitoring the population with extensive trapping. You've probably seen them if you drive through almost anywhere in Pasco. You see our green traps hanging up around the city. That's us. So this spring in April, we commenced our second year of treatments here in Pasco. What you're looking at is about 8 square miles of treatment area, and those yellow and green outlines there on the map are actually the property parcels. The green ones are ones that we've been able to treat with the turf grass treatment, and the yellow are ones that we did not receive responses from, and red are ones that have outright rejected the treatment. White is areas that do not have any treatable area, so no grass or any host material for Japanese beetle. So we were able to complete 2,254 turf treatments between April and June, which is pretty good, actually, compared to some other areas that we work in. So it does show that the residents in Pasco definitely are aware of the issue and are definitely giving us some support in eradicating this pest, especially in the areas. Does this work? Be cool. Oh, got it. Cool. This square mile right here is actually last year's treatment area. So we got the same, actually a little bit more treatment consent in that area, which is great. There's also a lot of large parks and schools in that area that are prime habitat for Japanese beetle to lay eggs. And we did get some good treatments down there. And we were also able to treat the golf course, all the schools, and all the parks in the area as well. So really good collaboration with the school district and the city's parks department as well. So we appreciated that. Now, at the end of June, we transitioned into doing some additional treatments this year, actually, and we had the funds to do it and the ability to do it. And what that is an additional foliar treatment. So we go around and we treat shrubs and trees that are also host plants for the adult Japanese beetle, because with the turf treatments, we're targeting the grub or the larvae that lives in the soil. Now, we had the ability this year to kill some adults too, which is great. In other Western states, they haven't seen major drops in population until they actually start killing the adults as well as the larvae. So we were excited to do this year. What these circles represent are areas where we've caught Japanese beetles in the past and this year. The darker circles are where we focused our treatments this year, because these are areas where this circle is a 200-meter radius, and in the center would have been a trap that caught 50 or more beetles. So we focused our efforts in those areas first, and you see kind of where we are right now as well. In our area, there were a few traps that produced quite a few beetles, but mostly it's in that same, what we're calling now the hot spot in that we've had in the previous year. So we've been able to get foliar treatments out, about 600, just over 600 foliar treatments completed in July. And once we completed treatments in those areas, we move on to less dense areas as funds and time allow. We will wrap up treatments on August 15th for the year. Now, really quickly, I want to show you guys what we're actually catching in terms of beetles. So I wish I had better news, but it is quite alarming, the population increase this year. So as of yesterday, we have 2,000 beetles trapped. That's up from just over 400 last year. So 4 times the population as last year. These beetle symbols do represent locations where we've caught beetles, but most of them are traps where we catch 1 or 2 beetles. So most of the problem areas are still where I indicated in that last slide, that same area, kind of between Sylvester and Wernette, where it's still kind of a hot spot is forming. And you can actually see it in this next slide where I kind of create a little heat map of the area. So these are our hottest spots where we're catching the most beetles, same areas, and we're going to keep targeting the same neighborhood with those treatments in the following year. But at this point, trap catches are decreasing as the population begins to crash for the year. We've kind of gone over the peak of their population. It was actually a kind of an early emergence this year, so we saw the majority of the beetles in early July, and most of the catches occurred in early July as well. So it's kind of we're seeing a big reduction in the numbers that we're catching every day. I think it's been a few days since we've actually caught one. So now moving forward, of course, we're going to continue our trapping. We don't pull our traps until October because there still are the odd late season beetles that are still active, and we want to catch those, especially if they're in new areas. We want to make sure we're addressing those. Now, in the off season, we're of course going to see if any redrawing of the treatment boundaries needs to occur. At this moment, I don't think they will actually change very much because we're catching beetles in the same areas as last year, which is good. Not much expansion there. We now have a clearly defined hotspot that we're going to do a lot more outreach next year and in the off season as well, and keep those treatments. And hopefully the state decides to fund us through next year again so we can do those turf grass treatments and the foliar treatments, which I think is going to be key in actually eradicating the population down here. And yes, I do still think it's possible, even with that increase in population. Like I said, the majority of that population is really concentrated in one area. So I think if we are able to get good treatment down there, we should be able to see a reduction in subsequent years. Now, the big thing up for discussion with myself and my management this year is reopening the discussion for possible internal quarantine in the area. And what that would mean is certain regulated articles would not be permitted from leaving the quarantine area. The biggest one there would be things like green waste or yard debris. So at the moment, we are starting discussions with the city and then now the county and then other entities to see what kind of mitigations we can come up with for the public before we would introduce a quarantine like that, because we don't just want to introduce a quarantine like this next year and have nowhere for people to take their green waste and yard debris. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what we do in Grandview or Sunnyside, where we've been able to construct and offer to the public a free area where they can take that debris so that they don't take it outside the quarantine area, and that's been highly successful. So we're hoping that we can do something similar in Pasco and in Franklin County. Now, of course, solutions like this are complicated and involve a lot of stakeholders, so we'll be proceeding carefully and making sure that we can make this a success in 2026, but we will be reopening that conversation because we don't want this beetle spreading more than it already has. And the way that it got here in the first place was more than likely through a human accidentally transporting it from the Grandview area already. So, and those regulated articles are preventing their movement is going to be really key in preventing further spread of these beetles to other counties and other cities. So I can take questions at this point. And here's an email you can always reach me at if you have any questions.
Questions, commissioners?
How successful have you been in Grandview?
Oh, in Grandview, so I've been looking at the numbers and correlating the trap catches to the areas where we've been doing the treatments. And what I've been seeing actually is once we started doing foliar treatment in Grandview, because we actually we had some funds last year to do a few in Grandview and actually some here, just to the parks and schools. And we have seen a reduction in the hotspot area in Grandview where we were catching more than 20,000 beetles a year. So 90% of the beetles we were catching were in this hotspot, and we've actually been able to reduce that size of that hotspot through the treatments. Our numbers, though, are still increasing in that whole area because we are finding them in new areas at this point. So closer to Mabton now is another growing population. But what I want to show with that is we can eradicate these populations with the treatments as they are right now. But restricting the movement of the beetle as much as possible is going to actually give us long-term success. So the treatment, yeah.
Are there areas where you have successfully eradicated the beetle?
Completely no, not at this point. This is an operation that is going to take 5 to 10 years. In Oregon, they're on their 8th year at this point with a very similar size population that they started with. So it's a very long-term process to get rid of.
But it is possible.
Yes.
Okay. I know with cattle and flies, they put stuff in the feed and the flies don't reproduce after eating the bait. I don't know if that's something that's available on the beetle.
Yeah, at this point, a control method like that is not available for Japanese beetle. That would be something really great and innovative if they could come up with that. But right now, our best shot is these conventional treatment methods. And I'll add that the chemical that we use is reduced toxicity, reduced risk. It doesn't have a signal word on the label or anything like that. So it is safe for mammals, birds, us. So it is what most of the Western states use for eradication for Japanese beetle. So we think the combination of the treatments, trapping, and the quarantine, and then also education are going to be, that's going to be really the winning combination to get rid of this thing.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Couple of different questions for you. Will you go back to the slide where there was a bunch of that one right there?
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming this is the number of traps at that location. This indicates a beetle that was caught.
Yeah, that's a really great distinction. So the numbers, and I should have probably turned those off to prevent confusion, but the numbers are just how many times they've been inspected by one of our trappers. And then the beetle symbol is a detection site, yeah.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. talking about the quarantine or the potential request for quarantine, looking at this roughly represents pretty close to identical the size of what the infestation was last year. And so with that being the case, is quarantine helpful? Because, you know, common sense would say that if you didn't quarantine last year, and this is what it looked like, is quarantine a worthwhile effort?
Yeah, and I think it is. I think it still is because, as you can see, we have spread into Kennewick and Benton County, and this is a total of 10 beetles that we've caught this year. We caught one last year, and this is 10 beetles at 9 different detection sites in Kennewick at this point. Now, I see what you're saying, because to the north, you will come across some, maybe like further up here that's not pictured, you will come across some natural barriers that, you know, there's nothing really up there for the beetle, so it's unlikely for it to spread that way. But the way this beetle is going to spread into Burbank next, for example, maybe, or down to Walla Walla or up 395 here, is going to be through trucks or people buying potted plants, people buying nursery stock, things like that. So, and we do have a few outlier detections as well. These up by the airport, we didn't have any detections up this high last year at all. And the beetle itself will spread relatively slowly, pushing these boundaries on all sides here, but it's going to be a human that introduces it to the next city. So we still do think it's a worthwhile effort, because us, you know, inadvertently introducing this beetle is the way that it spreads. So I do think, even though it's a process that is going to affect a lot of people, and we're going to try and mitigate those impacts as much as possible when we do, or if we do introduce a quarantine like this, I still do think it would be an effective way of controlling.
Okay. My thought process, there's nothing here, there's no dump site here for, you know, materials that would have come out of here, and the same with here. There's no place that, you know, lawn clippings and sod and tree clippings would have gone up here. And so the spread to here and the spread to here, you know, isn't going to have happened with yard debris and stuff dumped there, which is what the quarantine would, that's the goal of the quarantine, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, looking over here, this is a site where that you would dump your clippings and so forth. There's one here, and then you have the Richland landfill, and we don't see any evidence of a bloom starting here or a bloom starting up here, and that's why I'm wondering about the value of a quarantine. Does it carry any value when this picture is, you know, is spread by not clippings and stuff being dumped in those areas?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I will say it just takes one beetle to start a new population, and that's exactly what happened here already,
Yeah.
and what happened in Wapato. The beetle can spread on its own, we see that. This is most likely just some particularly strong flyers making it over the river, and then establishing a little population probably along Columbia Park is where I'm thinking right here. But the beetle can't fly 35 miles from Grandview, so
Yeah.
what we're trying to prevent here is, you know, the beetle can spread organically a little bit per year, but we don't want to be surprised when a population pops up in West Richland or pops up in Walla Walla. You know,
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to prevent here
Yeah.
with that quarantine.
Yeah. All right. That's helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you all.
So on your quarantine, you're going to, the quarantine will limit the people of that area to take their debris and dispose of it.
Yeah, the intention would be to limit that debris from leaving the area during a certain time period
Okay.
when the beetles are active, and that's in the rule language we've set. It's May 15th through October 15th, and that kind of catches the really early beetles and also the really late beetles that emerge. And with that restriction, you know, if you know, if you can't take it anywhere, the thing you can do is just also keep it in place.
But
So
are we
it's-
creating a breeding ground for the beetle then? If these people just start piling the stuff in their yard, then that is gonna be a breeding ground for the beetle to populate, won't it?
Yeah, that's true. And well, the intention is you can dispose of it after the flight season. So after the beetles are no longer active, as long as it's not soil that grubs could be in, you can move this debris wherever you want and dispose of it any way you want. So that's actually how we started in Grandview was we established that yard debris site because we needed a solution quickly, and our solution was just, let's just keep it until November, and then we can do whatever we want with it because we just can't have it leave the area. But now it's transformed into a really nice, gradual process where people drop it off during the year, and then we dispose of it within the quarantine area as it comes in to keep up with that pile. So, like I said, we have some framework to go off of in other cities, but we know that Franklin County and Pasco itself probably has some unique terrain, unique issues to deal with. So we have some framework, but it's not going to be a copy-paste solution, I don't imagine. So it's going to take some creativity from all the stakeholders and us involved to create a perfect solution for Franklin County.
So these beetles that showed up in Benton County there that you had on the screen, it's not a scientific analysis being done that they came from Franklin County. Those two could have came from Grandview. I mean, we don't know where they came from. They can be transported as we got our first beetle supposedly from Grandview, but we're not sure of that because when the planes are leaving back there in DC where they've had this mass infestation, they could have had those on the plane and they could have been offloaded on that out at the airport and moved into the Tri-Cities too. We don't know where they came from. The key is how we're going to get rid of them and how we're I can't remember the bug that they actually created a sterile and so they can't multiply. They've done that. I know one way to get rid of bugs is to burn the material. And
Yeah.
that would require a different attitude from our public about burning. And that's
Yeah.
one way you can get rid of the ability for this bug to populate is to burn that foreign material instead of just sitting there and letting it be a breeding zone for them.
Yeah, those are two good points. One, yeah, we don't know exactly where these beetles came from. So we know actually beetles love to ride on airplanes. It's actually kind of crazy, but they love to ride around on airplanes. We don't know why. They're so
They
attracted
can't fly
to them.
that far, so they like
Yeah,
something that'll
exactly,
take
yeah.
them.
And it's free for them. So that's how they, get introduced to SeaTac almost every year. We have detections in SeaTac.
Right.
Because they do come from these giant transportation hubs in Arkansas and Louisville, places like that. And the point you bring up with burning the material, we explored that very early on in Grandview, and were quickly shut down by the Clean Air Authority and
Yeah, exactly.
entities like that. So, but yeah, that was actually suggested by the city of Grandview themselves. It's what they thought would be a good solution. So,
So is composting now what the plan is?
composting.
Is that what you're doing? Composting, which
Yeah,
heats it up?
ultimately, right now, that debris that gets delivered to our two sites, it does eventually make its way to Natural Selection. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're a commercial composting facility, and they are within the quarantine area, so we have a contract with them to haul that material, and they use it for their compost. That is kind of the end process over there, but over here, like I said, there's that gap between the two areas, so it would be difficult to haul through there without risk of beetles jumping off at Benton City and Prosser and
Yeah.
things like that.
Composting is a great idea because the heat that's generated in that pile, they can't reside
It'll kill the
there.
grubs.
Exactly.
That kills the grubs. The problem is not everybody is as diligent as they need to be with their compost piles. So not everyone's a professional composter, and some of them in the backyards, they don't get hot enough to do that. So it's difficult because we do want people to compost, but they actually do lay eggs in compost. And if you're not getting that compost hot enough, what you're doing is creating a nice little incubation area for them. But yeah, good point.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right, moves us down to the open public hearing. This is the adoption of the revised county-wide planning policies. And this time, I will open the open public hearing and ask Mr. McCart to please present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Wes McCart. I'm the Planning and Building Director. Here today to present the countywide planning policies. These have been in existence since the Growth Management Act was entered into in the County of Franklin. And they've had some minor tweaks over the years, but as part of our process in getting the update cycle going, we are supposed to review them. I will tell you the participants in there were mayors and council folks from some of the different cities, staff, consultants. Our own attorney was later weighed in. We added quite a few policies from what was there before. We reworded some policies to bring them up to date. There are new mandates related to housing that the state has implemented, and how are we working together with distributing the population growth that's expected over the next 20 years. That was part of the discussion. What are we doing about the different housing distributions, low-income housing, homeless, medium housing? All of that led to a whole section of housing. We added some sections related to annexation and how we can better work together as the county and the cities on coordinating our efforts so that we have smooth transitions. I will tell you there's a lot of work to do there. We tried to beef up a little bit of the economic part of that so that every one of our communities is growing together, trying to lift up the entire county. No one entity should be the winner, and we shouldn't have winners and losers. We should all be winners. And that's the concept here. The countywide planning policies are meant to get us to consistency throughout the county with the cities. Now, I want to be very clear, consistency does not mean the same. There will be huge differences. Each city is able to make their own determinations. However, there is a mandate in the law. We're supposed to be consistent. This helps us get there and work together. The other thing I'll point out is the intent of these policies moving forward, and I hope you gentlemen will help me take the lead on that and help identify what direction you would like to go with the different cities. The hope is that we will turn some of these policies into interlocal agreements where we are actually tackling parts of this at a time so that we can make headway again together. I'll use an example. We have these donut holes of unincorporated area within the city limits of Pasco. I know some of the folks there don't necessarily want to be in the city. You have some folks that do want to be in the city. Sometimes the city's reluctant to want to take some of this because of having to bring up the infrastructure. So how do we work together to make those transitions in the donut holes? And also, how do we make those transitions in the urban growth areas? And it's going to look different in Pasco than it looks in Colotis or Connell, and what do those transitions look like? But these policies are meant to be very high level to get us that. I do have one suggested amendment for you gentlemen to consider. On policy number 9, I had a comment by our attorney, Mr. Briggs, and I'll just read the actual policy as it reads now. Municipalities should limit the extension of water and sewer service to areas within each jurisdiction's urban growth area. And he is suggesting we add the word except where otherwise permitted by law. I would support that amendment. Even without that amendment, the law would supersede these policies. But I think it's a good thing to show. There are a couple of cases where sewer can actually be extended outside of the urban growth area because of environmental concerns. That's allowed in the law. There are certain circumstances where water can be outside the urban growth area. This helps contain it within the urban growth area, except when we have those extraordinary circumstances. Again, I think it's a minor change. I will tell you, we did a presentation to the City Council of Pasco. I joined Haley, their Economic Development Director, to do that presentation to the City Council and the mayor there. We offered to go out to the other cities and do, help if they needed presentations to their city councils, but you may hear from some folks after this. But with that, I'll entertain any questions and let you move to public comment.
Commissioners, questions, comments?
What would you say is the biggest obstacle as far as people not wanting to be part of the city?
I think that probably the biggest hurdle at the moment would be, one, they don't want any further regulation. But the other one I would identify is probably the cost of the infrastructure. It's very expensive to install sewer and hook up, if they're required to add sidewalks, all of those different pieces. And so I think this is where the city and the county, if we can come up with some, I'd say, cost-sharing ideas to help that transition, it may benefit both entities.
Because the existing homes that are in that donut hole area, they're already on their own septic system, is that correct?
Yes, that would be correct. In most cases, not all.
Yeah. All right, no further questions.
How much time do you got?
Sir, I work for you. I can be here all day. And tomorrow.
These guys are run me off if I get too carried away. I probably have some questions that you can't answer or not at this point. Can we prevent donut holes?
I don't know that I have the answer to that in the future. I know they're not supposed to occur by law.
I could chime in on that.
Yes.
So-
Mr. Briggs.
And I've discussed this before. Yeah, Jeff Briggs with the prosecutor's office, for anyone who doesn't know who I am. I've brought this up before. The reason why the donut holes seem to be occurring is because of the lack of concurrence with urban services within those areas. What I mean by that is it's ultimately the city's decision whether or not to annex these areas. And the city's looking at these areas saying, well, if we annex them, we're going to have to build sidewalks. We're going to have to build the roads up to city standards, not county standards. We're going to have to provide sewer. A lot of these areas in the donut hole are not on wells, so they do have city water. So it's that lack of concurrency with our planning in terms of getting those urban services at the appropriate time for development. So they essentially have to retrofit these areas with those urban services, and that's very expensive for the cities. So they're saying, we're talking about Pasco here. So they're looking to the north UGA to say, well, we're just going to annex these areas, which isn't permitted under the GMA. They need to be annexing all of the urban growth areas. But I think Wes's countywide planning policies are a great step in the right direction. Our old countywide planning policies were just a restatement of the basic policies that the countywide planning policies needed to basically implement. We were basically restating what the state standard was without, adding our sort of local twist on those. So it's great to see Wes taking a hard look at these, and I particularly like the idea that we enter into an interlocal agreement with the city, because I think that's the key really to preventing future donut holes. We certainly don't want that happening in the North County. And if we keep along with the same growth patterns and not extending sewer and water and building the city standards, they're going to be disincentivized to annex those areas as well, and we're going to see more of those, which isn't good for either side.
Commissioner Baumann, I think that to not say this in a way that's taken offensively, we just need to be able to work together better in the future. And I think that's where we're striving to go from all sides right now. I see a lot of cooperation across the jurisdictions, and that needs to stay in place. And that's why I'm suggesting the idea that we entertain conversations about ILAs, because that helps us work together better. It puts sideboards on how we work together. Some of those are going to be hard conversations, but they're conversations that we can't continue to kick down the road because these problems are not going to solve themselves. They're not going to go away.
Yeah, thank you for that, and I see your counterpart is in the room from the city of Pasco, so thank you for being here, Haley. The big annexation that we just recently done, we did the same thing again, and we made a new donut hole out around Cow Trail. And if there's a way that we can enshrine that into the process, and I don't know that we can, if we can, I think that we should, because you're correct. We have there's a lot of goodwill, and we're working well together. That being said, we just did it again, and I agree with you. It's not helpful for either party when we have these disjointed things. It makes it really difficult for our public works to maintain little areas. They just paved a little piece down off of Wernette that was several hundred feet long in an area that is surrounded, by the urban growth area. There are just multiple things there. To get a joint development agreement put together with the city of Pasco in the form of an interlocal agreement, I think would be very, very helpful, and would definitely encourage us to do that. And if I can be helpful, would be happy to. Another component, there's quite a few developers that I know of that are being prevented from developing their properties because the city won't allow them to put in a individual, lift station to pump the sewer up out of their property because the gravity won't work. And the city would like them to put in a regional lift station, and it's completely cost prohibitive. And so that's another piece that, as we look down the road, I don't know how we do this. So the city won't allow them with their regulation to develop the lots in half-acre lots, which is what's required for a septic system. And it's cost prohibitive to build a regional lift station in some of these areas that are in donut holes, and it is very, very, very difficult. Having tried over and over and over for many, many years, more than a dozen years, to develop some of this urban growth area that's in a donut hole, it's very difficult. And I would encourage us to do everything that we can to put together a joint development agreement. One thing that I think is an easy way to go about it is, I live in a donut hole in Pasco, and I had to sign that I would not protest a LID, a local improvement district, if it were to come, and if I wanted access to city water. And I think that is a mechanism that can be used to allow some of these areas to be developed. And so instead of a property with 100 foot of frontage, having to go put in a light pole and a fire hydrant and curb gutter sidewalk, and there's nothing else within a half a mile that resembles that, for them to be able to go ahead and develop, but to say that when the time comes that they're ready to do all of it, that they won't protest that action. Because I could take you a drive for hours and show you example after example of people that either want to and can't because it's cost prohibitive. And so what we're doing is we're encroaching to the north in prime development, and we're not allowing people with 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 acres to develop their properties because they have to develop it to a design that looks nothing like anywhere around them. And so, yeah, I would love to be a part of that. And thank you for your hard work on it. And I definitely can see that there is goodwill and that it's going much better.
Commissioner, one suggestion I would make, and the policies are a step in that direction. Interlocals are a step in that direction. However, I think occasionally you three commissioners and the city council, and in particular of Pasco, should be having joint meetings, whether they're special meetings or not, to discuss some of these harder issues. And you throw out here's what the problems are, here's what we think solutions are, and it helps both of our staffs, both myself and in this case, Pasco, come together to try and find what are those solutions to bring to both of you entities to help solve some of those issues long term. These are not going to be solved overnight. There's no silver bullet here. It's taken place over a long time, and it's going to take a long time to solve. However, I think us working together, and that's one way that we can help work together, would be a positive thing.
Thank you, and I absolutely agree with you. As far as I'm aware, for the first time ever in my memory, certainly, there was a joint commission and council meeting out at the Haplo Center this last fall, and I was really excited to see that happen, and I think so. I don't know if we do it, every 6 months or something like that would be good. It'd be good to get the conversation started, and it's gonna take a while. It took a long time to get us here, and it'll take us a while to get it back on track. But thank you for all your efforts, and you're correct. These new policies and this new direction is going to be very helpful. So thank you so much for all that.
Well, and I definitely want to thank all the cities for their participation in here. It's key. It's a two-way street.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So, Mr. McCart, I have a couple questions. First one is on the amendment to the agreement.
Yes.
Is that in the agreement, or are we going to add that to it? Do we need to amend this agreement?
So
I didn't read it in here.
So it's not in there. It came in after I had presented this to you gentlemen from Mr. Briggs.
So we need to make
And
that in our motion?
It would be part of your motion if you so choose.
Okay, all right.
And again, I don't think it's not absolutely necessary. I mean, if someone were to oppose it, I don't have a problem. I just think it's a great suggestion. It's just pointing out the fact that there are circumstances in the law where that can occur, and we should limit it to that only.
And with the interlocal agreement with us getting together with Pasco, I think that's a great idea.
Well, and sir, just
Been
not to
called.
interrupt you, but I think that needs to occur with all of our cities.
Yes,
Pasco's right here. They're obviously the big entity.
yes.
But working together with Connell, Colotis, Mesa, these need to occur across all of the jurisdictions.
I agree. But getting back to this one here with our problems of these donut holes, I have talked to several citizens that live in these donut holes. Some of them do not want to be annexed into the city. Some of them do. The fear on their part is the fact that the citizens, the property owners, are the ones that are being asked to pay for the sidewalks, the curbing, the storm drains, the sewer and the water through the middle of the street, which has to be tore up to begin with to put that all in. Then they got to repave it. We're talking about an immense amount of money here, and there are people that are wanting to subdivide their ground that there will be no profit for them to do this. This is where we got to come to an agreement as to how these people will not lose everything that they've invested in to allow this to happen. They need to be able to earn off of their selling of their property. And that's what I want to make sure we protect is the citizens and their ability to profit off of their land and not put it all into the workings of a city structure.
Yes, sir. That is the idea. I think some of those discussions can be had with USDA Rural Development in some of those areas. There's some other ideas out there.
Okay.
But I think at some point we need to have the hard discussions about what does transition look like. And I think these policies point that direction.
Yes.
They're not meant to be regulatory. They are meant to be policies that help drive us to that cooperative agreement.
There's quite a few jurisdictions that have done something similar to what you're describing, and when that transition happens, any current use is grandfathered in. You know, when something is annexed, it can stay that way for as long as it is, but you can't change it from, you know, whatever its use is. You can't then go to trucking and then go to the next. If, you know, it's grandfathered in its current use until it's changed, and then it has to follow the guidelines of the jurisdiction. So that, there's quite a few other jurisdictions that have done that we could certainly use as a template.
So, is there any other comments or? Okay, so at this time, I'll open it up to the public. This is an open public hearing. Is there anybody in the public that would like to weigh in on this? Anybody on the phones? Nobody on the phones?
First of all, I want to say how grateful as a taxpayer, because I live in the city, but across the street is county, and this is where we struggle. And I do see developers trying to develop property which would bring in great revenue to both the city and the county. Sounds like there needs to be like a transitional program for taxpayers that are caught in this situation, giving them some flexibility, but also some hard stops so that everyone can get what they need. My thought about these lift stations that Commissioner Baumann mentioned is, I just kind of turned to the representative from the city here, and I think the concern they share, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, is that they would be responsible for maintaining those lifts. Why can't the homeowner take that on so that they have that choice? I'm currently on and it probably doesn't look like it. My husband built our house, and we do have a septic system, and we maintain it very much. But to hook up, we already have the spout for it and all that. But we have neighbors around us in our area that are really struggling with their septic system, and I'm very aware with the information you brought from the health board that that's an issue. And maybe we can combine all of those concerns to make a smooth transition and options that the taxpayers can be a part of. And I think that's what you're working for, so thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? Nobody is on the phone. So seeing nobody else coming for public comment, Mr. McCart, do you have any further comments?
No, sir, unless you have more questions.
I don't believe there is any. So at this time, I'll close the public comment period and move us into deliberations. Commissioners, is there any more discussion?
Not for me.
Just appreciate all the effort that Mr. McCart's been going through, and working with his counterpart at the city and with our other jurisdictions. And I'm excited that we're headed in this direction, getting some updates, and I think it's going to be very valuable for our community.
And I would just add that, Mr. Danzel, if we could set up a county, cities, all the cities, discussion on this, and try to figure out a way how we're going to work through this problem we have with these donut holes, because this is it's gone on way too long. It needs to be resolved.
Yeah, as you know, I'm a land developer, and probably almost once a week I get a call from some landowner asking, how do I do this? How do I do that? And there's some of them that I've been working with for years, trying to advise them on the process and so forth. And so you're supposed to be able to do things, but a 4-acre, 5-acre parcel can't justify building a $1 million lift station. And so if the city's not going to step up and do it, now what do you do? So we're supposed to be developing our urban growth area within the city in the donut holes. Mm-hmm. But, if you can't, if there's no physical way for you to pay for doing that, what do you do? And so, you try to develop it in a little bit less, where that you can use a septic system. And so the city has circumvented that process by putting regulation in where that you have to develop at a density of 3 lots per acre. Well, what that does, that was specifically put in place to prevent you from being able to use a septic system. A septic system properly put in, running well, I've put in hundreds of them, it's not an environmental concern. It doesn't contaminate our groundwater. It's a proper way to get rid of waste. And so there's been processes. So then you can't develop it and use a septic system, but it's cost prohibitive to do it. The city won't step up and pay for this $1.5 million lift station in a regional component. And so what do? So what we're doing is we're spreading north. Developers will. I've developed a lot of pieces of donut hole, when we could do it. But so there's some wrestling that we need to do, and I think this is a good first step.
So if there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt Resolution 2025-233 with the addition of except otherwise permitted by law to the end of the policy number 9.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for the Resolution 2025-233 with the addition of except otherwise permitted by law to the end of the policy number 9. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. So at this time, I'll close the open public meeting. And Mr. McCart, you stand right there. As we're moving into, next is the hearing, closed record hearing. And that is closed record hearing. Use permit cup application is required to allow the sales of plants and agricultural products on site. Resolution 2025-234. So at this time, I will open the closed record hearing. Mr. McCart.
Sir, this is a closed record hearing. If you have any questions for staff, I'd be happy to answer. Other than that, I would suggest you deliberate and move forward. Thank you.
Commissioners, questions? Have you all had time to review this? It's selling plants on a parcel of land. And again, these are things through this policy update that shouldn't even be coming before the commissioners. I'd have to say all 3 of these closed record hearings today is something that Mr. McCart should be able to handle on his own, but we've just got to get the policies put in place so he can.
I'm of the same mind. I think that all 3 of these in front of us today, I have had a opportunity to review them thoroughly and am in favor of all 3 of them, and do believe that it should be an administrative process.
If I could interject one thing, sorry to interrupt. Because this is a quasi-judicial proceeding, the appearance of fairness doctrine applies. So I just need the board to put on the record whether or not they've received any ex parte communications or have any sort of personal interest in any of these permits. If that's not the case, then that's fine, and you can proceed. If it is, then we can go into more discussion about that.
I have had no ex parte communication or know these individuals in any of the 3.
Commissioner Mullen?
I don't know any of them either.
And likewise, I don't know any of them. I haven't had any discussion with any of them. So with that, if there's no comment or discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
Do we need to open this up for public?
No, this is a closed record hearing. We only had one open public hearing, and the next 3 are all closed. So we don't open it up to the public, it's just the 3 of us.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move for the adoption of Resolution 2025-234, granting approval of the conditional use permit 2025-02 based on the 6 findings of facts and 15 conditions of approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for Resolution 2025-234, granting approval of conditional use permit 2025-02 based on the 6 findings of facts and 15 conditions of approval. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. And at this time, I will close the closed record hearing. Move on to the next closed record hearing. And again, this closed record hearing here is Resolution 2025-235, applicant is to allow for the construction of a detached accessory dwelling unit, which is basically put into place for taking care of their parents. So at this time, I will open the closed record hearing, conditional use permit 2025-05. So again, commissioners, do you know the person or have had any communication?
Have not.
Have not, no.
Mr. McCart, do you have anything to add to this closed record hearing?
No, sir, unless you have any questions.
And there is no questions, I don't believe, and so at this time, I'll entertain a motion. Yes, sir.
You could, just for being on the record, could you ask both commissioners if they reviewed the file in its entirety, please?
Oh, did
Thank
both
you.
commissioners review the file in entirety?
Yes, I have.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, keeping me out of trouble. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. McCart, I appreciate your thoroughness in preparing us for these, and I move for the adoption of Resolution 2025-235, granting the approval of conditional use permit 2025-05, based on the 6 findings of facts and the 15 conditions of approval.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second for the adoption of Resolution 2025-235, granting the approval of conditional use permit 2025-05 based on 6 findings of fact and 15 conditions of approval. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. At this time, I will close the closed record hearing. And it moves us down for our third closed record hearing here, and this closed record hearing is Resolution 2025-236, a conditional use permit. Applicant is to allow for the remodeling of an existing 30 by 30 detached structure as a commercial intermittent kitchen. So at this time, I'll open the closed record hearing and ask the commissioners, again, have you had any communication or have you had any interaction with this applicant?
Have not.
None.
Have not.
And have you reviewed the file in its entirety?
I have.
So is there any discussion? Mr. McCart, do you have anything to add?
Again, sir, unless you have any questions, no.
Commissioners, questions?
Just a comment, I remember fondly when I was about 5, 6, 7 years old, Norma Wolf, I think you probably remember the Wolfs, and she baked bread and brought it to the farmer's market. And, you know, on Friday, she would bake hundreds and hundreds of loaves of bread, and she had something similar to this in her basement. It was, the whole thing was set up, and it was amazing. And I just remember fresh bread's amazing to walk into, and excited that somebody is still using their talents to serve the public.
So if there's no other questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the adoption of Resolution 2025-236, granting the approval of conditional use permit 2025-02 based on the 6 findings of fact and the 16 conditions of approval.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second on Resolution 2025-236, granting the approval of a conditional use permit 2025-02 based on 6 findings of fact and 16 conditions of approval. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And at this time, I will close the last closed record hearing. And I want to thank Mr. McCart for a great job. And in our new policies, do we have this set up then that these won't come before us again, that you're going to be able to make this decision? Have we got that put together yet, or we're still working on it?
Sir, that's part of the overall update that will probably not come before you for finalization until the end of '26.
The end of 26?
It'll, to get all the comprehensive plan policies done, add the climate policies, rechange all of our regulations. Yes, sir, we probably will be, we're shooting for July, probably be the end of the year. We're working very hard towards that goal, but thank you for getting us past the second hurdle. Now we get the major hurdles.
Well, I just appreciate you, Mr. McCart, and all the effort you're putting into Franklin County. Thank you, sir. All right. With all the open and closed record hearings under our belt, we'll move down to
Real quick.
Yes.
Ask the question. I would just ask it.
Mr. McCart. I guess we have a question for you.
Looking at this, I believe we just did conditional use permit 02 twice. Looking at this, I believe we did it on the first closed record hearing. You want to just step up here and I'll show you.
Oh, yes, we did.
I think we did it the same thing twice. I think this
Yes.
needs to be 06 instead of
Yes, it
02.
does. It needs to be 06. That last motion needs to be 06.
Okay.
Yes, sure, that should have been 06.
Okay, so do we need to make a motion to strike the last motion and redo the motion? And we've closed the closed record hearing.
I mean, I think we just need a new motion. If we passed one twice, were they different resolution numbers, though?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, then we would need to.
So
to-
we
okay.
did resolution 234 with conditional use permit 02, and we did 236 with the same conditional use permit.
Okay. So I think we need to make a motion then to recall that last resolution, and then we could pass
Yes.
it again with the
Yes.
proper conditional use permit.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a new motion would be appropriate.
It's 02 again?
It is 06. The last one is 06.
And without,
That's what you had the hearing on, and
yes, without opening up the closed record hearing again, or do I need to reopen it?
I think based on the fact that it's just an error, you can just
Okay,
recall the previous motion and make a new one.
good
Mr.
catch,
Chairman?
Mr. Bellman, good catch.
With a Scribner's error, we need to recall resolution 2025-236, in which we improperly passed conditional use permit 02 for a second time.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to recall resolution 236. Without discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval for the adoption of the restated resolution 2025-236, granting the approval of conditional use permit 2025-06 based on the 6 findings of fact and the 16 conditions of approval.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for the adoption of resolution 2025-236, granting the approval of conditional use permit 2025-06 based on the 6 findings of fact and 16 conditions of approval. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 My
Thank you.
apologies, sirs.
Thank you, Mr. McCart. With that, we'll move down to Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Danzel.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think the idea here was to deviate from the plan and have Mr. Briggs give an update, but
If it's okay with the chair,
Yeah.
Mr. Briggs and I went to the risk pool last week and just asked if he would give us kind of a summary of what that was.
Please, Mr. Briggs.
Sure. Board, Commissioner Baumann and I did attend the Risk Pool Conference this past week. For folks at home that don't know what that is, the Risk Pool is a consortium of 22 member counties that have formed a separate entity, the Risk Pool, and we're self-insured through that. And so the primary focus at these conferences is generally risk reduction. So in my role as the risk manager for the county, it's very informative for me. Among the presentations at the most recent conference was a presentation on the sexual assault molestation claims. There's over 100 right now across the state, and one of the problems with and they're all targeting juvenile detention centers, and these claims are coming about through solicitation from law firms that are advertising online, on social media, saying, have you ever stayed at any of these juvenile detention centers? Well, call us. They're also going out and getting lists of everyone who stayed at juvenile detention centers and sort of cold calling these people to sort of solicit them to join in on these on these lawsuits. The problem that the counties are encountering with these lawsuits is that we don't have the records. So juvenile records were required by law to destroy. So a lot of times we don't even know if these people stayed at the detention centers or not. And all of them have really long criminal history, but their juvenile history may not indicate, whether they stayed there or not. So this sort of dovetailed into a discussion we had on, well, why don't we have a lobbyist for the risk pool? And Commissioner Baum was there. I believe you made the motion at the board meeting for us to employ a lobbyist to assist in things like this, because it would be great for the legislature to amend the law if they're going to allow claims to go back. And these are claims that go back like 40 years, 50 years, to allow us to properly defend ourselves, even know, did these people stay at these detention centers or not? We had a legislative update, sort of shifting gears here, and that update talked about various bills that have passed through Congress. Among those was a bill, these SPICs that have come. The SPICs are the environmental siting planning committees. Essentially, we've heard about these at meetings. I believe Amanda McKinney came down and discussed them. The most recent example, I think, locally here is in Benton County with the wind farm. And what these entities do is they essentially override local planning functions. The local government has no say in these, and in fact, in the Benton County litigation, I believe what has occurred, I've been trying to keep up on it, just sort of watching what's going on there, is the governor can override the committee. So while the committee has standards, even if the SBIC committee doesn't follow its own standards, the governor can just sign off on it. So it's essentially a standardless siting mechanism where they can put these wind farms anywhere with essentially no standards that govern them. So kind of a scary thing for local governments. Well, that also could make us run afoul of the comprehensive plans of our, I think as McKinney pointed out, we can't, agricultural lands of long-term significance can't be, that would conflict with the need to have these wind farms. So this recent law essentially states that any planning changes made through these SBIC decisions aren't subject to the Growth Management Act. So at least we're not getting hit on both sides, having SBIC, cite a wind farm that ends up running us afoul of the Growth Management Act and getting sued on both sides of it. So I guess that's good news. There was House Bill 2015. This is in regards to the indigent defense standards that are hitting all the counties. And this is the state's sort of tone-deaf response to the cries from local governments saying, we need help, right? We cannot meet these standards. These are going to bankrupt us. And so the state said, well, we'll allow you guys to pass a 0.1% sales tax on your residents. Problem solved, right? We're done here. So that's sort of the state legislature's answer to these problems. I did note, just sort of looking this issue up, we have House Bill 1592 that's currently in the House that would require the state to provide 50% funding for indigent defense. I believe Skylar Rood and other members are sponsoring this bill. And this would be really important because then the state is kind of putting, their money where their mouth is. They're not just requiring us to tax our citizens with these unpopular taxes. The other thing I should mention about this 1% sales tax is in order to even pass it, we would be required to adopt policies that align with Keep Washington Working. So it's not just, carte blanche authority to pass an unpopular tax. We'd also need to pass these policies, essentially stating that we won't assist the federal government. That's a big part of Keep Washington Working that I think is the reason why we're declared a sanctuary county, is that we would need to adopt policies that say we're not going to assist ICE in their investigations.
Mr. Briggs, before you go on.
Sure.
So in order to raise a sales tax, it has to go to the vote of the citizens of the county, does it not?
Truth be told, I haven't dug into this law. Some sales taxes can be passed by the governing body without going to the voters. It appears this may be one of them. However, we would also need to adopt those policies. Once we adopt those policies, by the way, we'd also be able to obtain grants from the Criminal Justice Training Commission. I believe those grants, though, may be limited solely to recruitment, retention of new police officers. So while the tax could be for criminal justice purposes generally, which would include indigent defense, I believe the grants would not, but I could be mistaken. I was just reading the House bill report during the meeting to sort of get up to speed on it. There was also, let's see here, a roundtable discussion. So this is where we get to interact with other counties and discuss how they're dealing with risk management. The interesting thing I heard in speaking with Commissioner Overbay with Chelan County is that their county, and this actually was also the case in Okanagan and other counties, one of the ways that they handle risk management is they have the same problem. This isn't a unique problem to Franklin County, where we have a lot of electeds that want to do their own thing and take actions that create risk for the county and impact our budget. The way they handle that is if there's a claim against the county, that deductible to the risk pool or whatever the cost is comes out of the budget of whatever department or office created that claim. And so they've indicated that this has been successful because it helps internalize for those departments and offices the risk that they are creating. So just a thought there. I thought that was kind of an interesting way of managing risk.
Could you ask Chelan County if we could get that resolution from them?
I could do
please?
that, yeah.
I'd like to read that. That's something I would be interested in doing here in Franklin County.
Okay. And that's essentially all I had.
Thank you, Mr. Briggs. Mr. Danzel.
I met with various officials throughout the county. I met with you gentlemen. I'm going to curtail mine for today. I'm also going to recommend that we move my workshop to another meeting. I think that we should do that at the following meeting, if that's possible.
Okay.
On that, I will say that I have received, the one that I wanted to make more clear, then I'll share with you gentlemen on a one-on-one basis, more of my update later on. I am receiving more and more phone calls on a daily basis about both septic systems as it pertains to planning and building, and also by county health. So this just keeps getting more and more, and so I think we need to really work as diligently as possible to get solutions for our folks out there. With that, I'll get with you one-on-one for a further update.
Thank you. Mr. Baumann.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That Washington County risk pools, appreciate that report, Jeff. There were several things that pretty important coming out of that. The SAM claims thing is a pretty big deal. Kind of to break it down into just layman's terms, somebody can claim that they were in our jail in 1972. It was juvenile, so therefore the records don't exist, so we can't even prove that they were actually ever even there. And so this is a pretty big deal that we really need our legislatures to step up and help define how it's going to be handled. And then Jeff spoke about the FSEC rules and some of that stuff. It really does, and there's a number of different ways. Migrant housing is another one where that they can come and place them in our county wherever they want and bypass any of our local stuff, and FSEC can do the same thing with siting of windmills and so forth. And so appreciate your explanation on those, Jeff. And then the explanation that he had of Chelan County, I found that to be particularly interesting, where that if there's a claim made against Franklin County, the department with the originating department, that the deductible that we are required to pay would come directly out of theirs. And so I've already spoke with our administrator about that and asked that he start evaluating that as we are nearing budget season, that's something that we would implement a policy that we would do that. Last week toured Franklin County Emergency Management with some community leaders, and just to really appreciate Sean and his team there welcoming us and just walking us through. It wasn't a long meeting, but just appreciate how prepared they are. They just always are impressive. Multiple phone calls with our administrator and agenda preparation, and I'll just leave it there, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, let's get this on record. That's the shortest.
Easy now.
Commissioner Mullen.
So I met with Lori Lancaster at the Benton Franklin Fair. Just want to announce that is coming up August 19th to the 23rd. It's a great event and is very crucial, I think, for our young people in Franklin and Benton counties. That it's a great opportunity for kids to learn all different kinds of skills and keep them motivated with certain projects and whatnot. Also met with the health department yesterday. Like I said, with fair season coming up, there's still a lot of regulations being put out by LNI on some of the vendor booths out there. I don't see the problem going away. I just it needs to be addressed on a state level, and it's an unfortunate that LNI has made these regulations and then claim that they don't have the manpower or the capacity to enforce their own laws, or their regulations, I should say. So they put that on the health department, and so the hardworking people at the health department are basically enforcing the laws set forth by LNI, which health department does not get compensated for all that extra work and grief. And believe me, it's a lot of grief on them. It's I think it's wrong that that LNI has turned our health department into an enforcement agency. So I think that needs to be addressed on a state level so that we can get them out from being the enforcement agency for LNI. And that, other than my meeting with Mr. Danzel, that's my report.
So last week, between months, pretty light schedule for meetings, just the agenda meeting that I really appreciate with our administrator. And then I've been referring everybody that's calling me about problems with septic and the problems that they're having within our county to Mr. Danzel. So, and I'd like to say I've already returned, I think it's 5 forms now to Mr. Danzel on our 2-year strategic plan. So I'd encourage the other commissioners to get out there and hand these out to the public and encourage them to participate, because this is their county and they need to get their voice heard. So just going to be a good strategic plan with input from the public. So thank you, Mr. Danzel. So with that, we'll move down to correspondence.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if you're okay with it, I'd like to just make a comment about what Commissioner Mullen just described with the State Department of LNI and the Health District. I was reached out to last year, kind of told the story last year about some of the challenges they were going through, reached out to some of our legislators, and the first interaction that I had when somebody reached out to me, asked if I would meet with them, and so I went, and when I arrived, I was witness to this individual, had never met me before, I'd never met him And so when I walked up, the health district was there. He had just purchased a new food trailer that's valued over $300,000. And this is the second one because he couldn't make the first brand-new trailer acceptable to the Benton Franklin Health District and the State Department of L&I. And so he sold his original one at a loss and purchased this new one. I think it was $339,000 is what he paid for this thing. And it was the recommendation of the Benton Franklin Health District that he go in and remove his tools, his deep fat fryer and his tools, bring them out into the parking lot if he wanted to do it, because they couldn't go into a trailer that was not L&I inspected. And so I was accused of yelling at these health district workers, and there's certainly a list of people that were witnesses to that. If people have questions about whether or not that I yelled at it, and apparently that narrative is continuing today that I was yelling at them. I was not. I did say that that was one of the most ridiculous things that I ever heard, is that you would dismantle a $340,000 brand new stainless steel trailer built for this purpose and bring it into the parking lot so that you could continue doing your stuff. And the most disappointing part of it is considerable time and effort went through to try to get them through last year's fair. Mm-hmm. And so back in, I think it was January, a different vendor reached out to me and said, we're struggling with the same thing. And that has been coming forward to less than 2 weeks ago. In despair, she reached out to me again and said, I don't know what to do. We're not going to make it again this year. As far as, apparently there's only one individual in the entire state of Washington that is allowed or trained or whatever to affix a sticker to a food booth trailer. And so one thing about the Benton Franklin Fair and Rodeo is when you go there, there is certainly some food trailers there, but there's lots of tents and, that have the fronts. And what they've found is it's simpler to go and do that massive setup than it is to bring their food trailers that they use all around the Pacific Northwest, actually the western United States. They said it's easier to put up a tent in Benton County, Washington, than it is to bring a stainless steel, multiple hundreds of thousands of dollar food trailer. And like Commissioner Mullen said, it's really sad that the State Department of L&I is using the Benton Franklin Health District as the enforcement arm of their regulation. And so haven't spoken with that lady for a bit. I have reached out to some of our legislators, and they are trying to assist with that. But this is something we need to get our arms around because it's a mess. And what happens is it goes like this.
Yeah.
Everybody, it's not me, it's them. And apparently there's only one individual in the entire state that can do this one process. So, yeah. And even more disappointing that I'm being accused of yelling at the health district workers with an audience at the fair. And certainly didn't happen, and I'm disappointed that narrative is continuing to be put out there. So, thank you.
I might add too on that trailer, that particular trailer, his first trailer was purchased for the sole purpose of the Benton Franklin Fair. And L&I wanted him to tear the walls out of it so they could look at the electrical, which was totally not conducive to being economically viable. So again, he sold that trailer. The next two trailers that he bought specifically for that reason, for the fair here in Benton County, he went through all stages, including a video conferencing with L&I so that they could see the entire process of the trailer being built. And then, which set the production back about 3 months on those trailers. Passes all the requirements, gets to Benton Franklin. They claim they don't have the time to come out and put the sticker on after he's jumped through all their hoops. And it's very frustrating because, if somebody has a 30 or 40-year-old trailer that may have gotten inspected years ago, I mean, they're good to go. And when you compare, a 30 or 40 year-old trailer to a brand-new $300,000 unit that doesn't pass, it's ridiculous. And
The
I've
other
seen,
swarm of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance.
yeah,
That's what's going on here.
yeah, it's wrong.
Yes, it is. So with that, we'll move down to correspondence. Mr. Danzel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have two pieces of correspondence. Both are pertaining to staffing requests. First, the prosecuting attorney's office has submitted a letter requesting to backfill two positions, a temporary legal secretary 3 and a legal secretary of the child support office. Second, information services is requesting to backfill a network 2 analyst position. That's a result of a promotion from within that's going to happen as our current network analyst. One of them will be moving into a systems analyst position, and so they're looking to backfill. My recommendation today to you gentlemen, and this is also on the heels of meeting with prosecuting attorney Sean Sant, who I believe is tried to make or is going to make well, he's going to schedule a meeting with you gentlemen to discuss some issues. I would take a week to consider if you have any questions. It'll also allow you to meet with Mr. Sant. This will also allow you ample time to review the request thoroughly before making any decisions. If the board would like more information, I can schedule it on the agenda as a regular business item at our next meeting and notify the requesting official. If you feel like you have enough information in that week's time, you can place it on the consent agenda and just pass it. But that would be my recommendation today.
I think I'll take your recommendation. Can I ask a question? Have we got the new report on the sales tax? Are we still on that same decline?
Yeah, it's still not good, but I'll get the firmed up numbers when I meet with Tim and Jeff and Ryan, hopefully on Friday.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
So with that, we'll move down to public comment. Is there anybody for public comment?
Was there item G, the information services to backfill the network analyst position? Is that something we should wait on too?
He reported on that.
Okay. All righty, I thought it was just F, so thank you.
Gentlemen, I am very sincere in needing your attention on this comment. I have sent a First Amendment petition to Mr. Danzel for review. The power of a First Amendment petition is to be able to refer when there are constitutional violations, with which you just went through a litany. Some of them are U.S., and the invasion we're experiencing in the state, which we think is the highest priority for, and it's a tool for counties to coalesce around together, as you are with the OPD letter. But this referral would go to the DOJ. We are seeing violation after violation of what he just talked about with the juvenile system, with our health department, and those are Washington State Constitution violations. Our governor and our AG are supposed to uphold those, or they're to be removed from office. And these are the way that we are to redress grievances with our government, not in the court system. This was designed since the onset of our country and our state. The counties came together and formed Washington State. The counties are the parent and the state is the child. But look how it's turned upside down. In the tyranny through the judicial system, we have become a judicial government. Everything we do takes us to court, and we lose because we don't have the proper representation. But you have a tool, and I'd ask you to talk to Mr. McCart, because we have a county that took the step to make a resolution of which I can pass on to you. We've developed the bylaws. We have 5 other counties we'll be presenting next week, because there is a tool that is far more powerful than what we're getting with the state legislature. An L&I inspector is not an electrical inspector, and is the wife of someone who was a project manager in a major electrical industrial company. They can't overlap. Where is our power to hold them accountable? It is in the First Amendment petition. So Mr. Glenn Morgan, and you've seen the letter on the Sports Alliance, submitted to our governor violations of our law. He did not hold one of them accountable. He just reshuffled the desk and asked the chair to step down. You have the power to hold him accountable, and I want you to see the demonstration of this and ask for a workshop with a specialist, not me, But I'm assisting in this because I think it's one of the most powerful tools and that we have been relegated. And what's it based on? You've heard me mention the ratification debates. Those have been called artifacts. This is where Jefferson and Madison literally outlined every aspect of our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and how it's supposed to work. Case law destroys that. Constitutional redress of grievances restores that. It unites people across the spectrum with different issues on the constitutional. It's not even partisan if you want to know the truth. Thank you. Please schedule it.
Anybody else for public comment? Anybody on the phones? Do we need a executive session?
Yes, we do. Under RCW 4230-110-1I, potential litigation, we would need myself, the board, and Ms. Lloyd. And I guess the clerk of the board could stay upstairs and keep time if we're going downstairs.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Danzel.
Yeah, I would just add that I would recommend polling later today after we get out of the executive session, the workshop today and moving
no
it till
workshop
next
today.
week. Yeah,
So we'll
Mr. Chairman,
conclude-
I'd be happy to do that now.
okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move for adjusting our agenda as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to adjust our agenda to remove the workshop for today after we go in and out of executive session for how long, Mr. Briggs?
20 minutes.
So with that, there's been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And at this time, we'll recess into executive session at 10:31, 10:32. Give us a minute to get down there. And we'll come out at 10:52. We are back from executive session with no decisions being made. Is there any other business for the good of the county?
Just a comment.
Yes, sir.
I have, you know that I've been concerned about scope creep with the Columbia Valley Center for Recovery and the housing portion of that. I have asked for a comprehensive explanation of where those costs are, where we are to date. And the numbers that I've been given, as far as I can tell, we're at about $45 million, not counting the $3.8 million allocated for the housing portion. But that's more than $800 a square foot to remodel that facility, and it just keeps rising. And I'm really concerned that some of the information we've been given, for instance, it was described to us there's going to be roughly 100 employees to operate that facility, and on just using some generic numbers based on Franklin County employment, you know, that's well over $10 million just for the employment, just for payroll. And it's going to, you know, take, I don't know, but I'm assuming several million to operate the facility. And so if the yearly operation is $12 million, and collectively Benton and Franklin County collect roughly $9 million per year in the mental health sales tax, I don't understand where this is coming to. So just want to let you know that I've asked for a comprehensive explanation of where we're at to date, and I'll come back and report on that. And just wanted to reiterate that I'm very concerned with where we're at with that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'd have to say thank you for being diligent on this and keeping track of things and asking questions. You keep asking questions, because cost at $12 million and the funds are $9 million, this ain't gonna work.
Something that's so critically needed in our community as a facility like that. I don't want us to overbuild something that we can't operate. I'd like to see it, you know, get underway as soon as we can get it underway and operate it. And if our community finds that it's necessary to grow it at that point, that's their decision. But I'm scared that we're building it bigger than we can afford, and that would be really, really sad for our community if we couldn't afford to operate a facility that we had put so much time and effort into.
I'd agree. So is there any other business for the good of the county, discussion-wise? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.